Very warm good evening to the Young Minds International family. And thank you so much for having me here with y'all today. And as I declare this meet open, let me wish you from the bottom of my heart all glory and all wings to all your dreams and ambitions as you go ahead touching lives of hundreds and thousands and even more. It's always a joy to address a gathering of people who have gotten together with a purpose. I know that each one of you have become a part of this organization with an innate sense of purpose and responsibility of giving back to the society and also carrying each other as you go ahead in life. And I say this in particular because we live in an age and era where we are seemingly surrounded by a lot of people, but when it actually matters, we are often left to ourselves. As is said famously, the more and more means of communication that man has, the less and less he often has to say. And as prescient as Thoreau's words were, I would think this is the era, this is the time period where it fits in the best. As we all keep going ahead with our busy lives, there is a lot of restlessness that keeps garnering around us, especially when you come to Kerala. As Dr. Tarur once again famously said in an interview, when you visit the streets of Kerala or India, everybody seems to be in a hurry all the time, but nobody seems to be on time. So I know it's different here. All of you were on time. But I'm sure all of us do have extremely busy lives. And we say it with a sense of pride, right? വലിയ തിരക്കാണ് എന്ന് പറയാൻ എല്ലാവർക്കും ഭയങ്കര ഇഷ്ടമാണ് കേരളത്തിൽ. എന്നോടും പലരും അതിങ്ങോട്ട് ചോദിക്കാറുണ്ട്. കുഞ്ഞിൻ്റെ കൂടെയുള്ള ഒരു ചിത്രം കാണുമ്പോഴോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അവൻ്റെ കൂടെ ഇരുന്ന് പഠിക്കുന്നതോ അവൻ്റെ പുസ്തകം പൊതിയുന്നതിൻ്റെ റീൽസ് ഇട്ടപ്പോഴോ ഒക്കെ ആളുകളാണ് മാഡം ഇത്രയും തിരക്കിനിടയിൽ ഇത് ചെയ്യാൻ എങ്ങനെയാണ് സമയം കിട്ടുന്നതെന്ന് എന്നോട് ചോദിക്കാറുണ്ട്. സോ ഐ കീപ് ആസ്കിങ് ദം ബാക്ക്, എനിക്ക് തിരക്കാണ് എന്നുള്ളത് it's a given always. People always take it for granted that you're invariably busy. And that really fascinates me as to how everybody around us are invariably busy with something or the other. I'm yet to meet people who tell me on my face that I'm living a relaxed life. Now, is it a good thing or a bad thing is a different story altogether. I'm not going into a value judgment there. But the crux of the matter is that all of us are extremely busy leading our own lives. Something, on an aside when you think about it, why do we want to be so busy? Or at least why do we want to portray ourselves to be so busy all the time? I'm sure yet we have time for doing everything that we want, we really, really want, however useless or however silly that might be. All of us have enough time to do everything that, our mind really gets drawn to or attracted to. Just the sheer amount of time that we spend scrolling on social media tells us that, that we still can find time for doing things that appeases us in some way or the other. Not necessarily useful for us, but, which appeases us. So the question that I want to leave you all with today is that, why is it that all of us like being busy? I think it's a good thing being busy, definitely. You know, we all love being busy because as a society, we are still undergoing a massive transformation in terms of our values, in terms of our vision, and in terms of our own little parcels of reality or little islands of reality, as I may call it. And the more the transformation, the more restless all of us become. The more the collective transformation, the more restless each of us as individuals become. And this works in the converse manner also. The more restless we as individuals become, the more transformation occurs in the society as well. And that is the beauty of that dynamic equation. One of my favorite authors is Pico Iyer, and in one of his TED talks, I remember him, saying a very pithy sentence, which goes, "It is okay to be restless, but let us not be rootless." I would add one more word to it. Let us also not be ruthless. Yes, it is okay to be restless, but let us not be rootless. And let us also not be rootless. Yeah. If there's anything, that I can add to this evening, that would just be these three words. Let us try and garner all our restlessness into a collective energy and channelize it through a proper vision so that it leads to the much desirable transformation of society. At the same time, let us ensure that we are not rootless. Especially when it comes to the younger generation, let's not forget where we all stem from. And the importance of roots is also not only to stay rooted, to the ground, to stay humble, to not forget where you came from, stay, steady in your value system. All of that is there with roots. But another beauty of roots is also that roots always remain invisible and keep extending their arms to wherever it is necessary. Not only to absorb nutrients, but also to share nutrients. In older days, we as children often used to study these stories of the woodcutters, right? I don't think the younger children nowadays really come across, the woodcutter with the axe and the angel that appears in front of the woodcutter and all of that. But, in these fascinating stories that we have learned as young children, there's always this imagery of, cut wood and stumps, right, in the forest. When you think of forests, there's always these stumps. And after a few months or a few years, we see that these stumps again start growing fresh leaves and shoots, right? Now, where do these dead wood stumps get the nutrients in order to shoot up fresh leaves? It's actually the roots of the tree underneath the soil, which extensively networks with roots of other trees that are still alive, whose stumps have not been cut. And essentially, there is a very vast network that keeps happening underneath the soil with all the roots intermeshed together, that it actually tries to save the tree whose stump alone is remaining, whose trunk has been cut off. And that, I think, is the actual purpose of roots when we try and project the lessons that we learn from nature onto ourselves. When we try and extend our roots and enmesh ourselves with the lives of other people around us, that is when this collective transformation that we are all looking for would actually happen. When I'm talking about collective transformation, I would be remiss if I'm not, mentioning one of my favorite Nobel winners theories, which is a game theory. I'm sure many of you would have come across that, at least as as a WhatsApp forward or an Insta reel. So game theory by John Nash is something very interesting, which still rules a lot of decisions made by stalwarts even today in various fields. So I'm not here to explain the entire concept, but there's something very simple in game theory which he talks about, which is equilibrium. Yes, and that's a concept that all of us are aware of, right? Equilibrium. So when he talks about in a game when there is an equilibrium, what happens is that as an individual, you know, if you're going to change your strategy alone without cooperation from the rest of the players in the game, that is not going to make any difference. Just one person changing a strategy in a situation which is in equilibrium, which means which is a stable system already. One person changing a strategy is not going to make a difference. And the classic example he gives for that is a traffic signal, something that all of us have seen and keep seeing day in and day out, right? So in a traffic signal, what does red mean and what does green mean is already coded and it's kind of wired into our system, right? Now imagine, so that is an example of a stable system, right? So in a stable system like that, if one person, if I decide to change my strategy at a traffic signal, that is not going to make any positive difference, right? If at all, it is only going to make negative difference, or we are going to face bad, harsh consequences for that. And most of the stable societies that have attained equilibrium actually are in states like this, wherein one, however large-hearted that person might be, however tall-headed his thoughts might be, however wise the counsel might be, however motivated and driven she might be, one person's strategy will not make a huge difference in a stable equilibrium society, right? And that is where I think restlessness is good. Because in a society like ours, which is still restless, which is still undergoing a lot of transformation, every single person's move actually will count and it will make a difference. Because we are not yet at that state of equilibrium as yet, right? And so I would want to plead to each one of you that as individuals and as a group of driven individuals, let us try and channelize all our restlessness together and put it into a purpose which will make a difference in the lives of many. And as a young organization, not just as the name suggests, but even, with the kind of demography that I see and also with the, ground experience that you've had as a young organization, I would definitely urge each one of you to make sure that the energy is put in to good use in order to touch lives of many. And let's also not forget that every person counts and every step matters. Finally, the change might be cumulative. You might not see the difference then and there. It need not be instantaneous, but the change will definitely occur. And we ourselves in our lifetime have witnessed a lot of transformation, a lot of transition that we have been going through. And the system as such, as I said, imbues that sense of restlessness into us because there is so much to attend to, as we all know. And so let us not keep complaining about it. Instead, let us try and harness that restlessness and fill ourselves up with purpose and compassion as we move ahead. ആരുടെ കാലിൽ തറയ്ക്കുന്ന മുള്ളുമെൻ ആത്മാവിനെ കുത്തി നോവിക്കും എന്ന ബാലാമണിയമ്മയുടെ ഒരു കവിതയുണ്ട്. ആരുടെ കാലിൽ തറയ്ക്കുന്ന മുള്ളുമെൻ ആത്മാവിനെ കുത്തി നോവിക്കും എന്നുള്ളത്. മാതൃത്വം എന്നുള്ളത് എന്താണ് എന്ന് എന്നെ എൻ്റെ കുഞ്ഞ് വരുന്നതിന് മുൻപേ പഠിപ്പിച്ചത് ബാലാമണിയമ്മയുടെ കവിതകളാണ്. അത് സ്വന്തം കുഞ്ഞിനോട് എന്നുള്ളത് മാത്രമല്ല, മറിച്ച് നമ്മുടെ മുന്നിൽ കാണുന്ന ഓരോ അണുവിനോടും ഓരോ ജീവജാലത്തോടും അതേ സമീപനത്തോടു കൂടി നമുക്ക് എന്നാണോ പെരുമാറാൻ സാധിക്കുന്നത്, എന്നാണോ പരിഗണിക്കാൻ, ഓരോ ജീവജാലത്തെയും എന്നാണോ അങ്ങനെ പരിഗണിക്കാൻ സാധിക്കുന്നത്, അന്നാണ് നമ്മൾ യഥാർത്ഥത്തിൽ മാതൃത്വത്തിൻ്റെ പൂർണ്ണ രൂപം കൈവരിക്കുക എന്നാണ് കവിതയിൽ പറയുന്നത്. കവിതയിൽ മാത്രമല്ല, ജീവിതത്തിലും നമുക്കത് ഉടനീളം നെഞ്ചിലേറ്റി നമ്മുടെ കർമ്മപഥത്തിൽ കൊണ്ട് നടക്കാൻ സാധിക്കും എന്ന് തന്നെയാണ് ഞാൻ ഉറച്ചു വിശ്വസിക്കുന്നത്. അത് ഞാൻ ആദ്യം പറഞ്ഞതുപോലെ ചിലപ്പോൾ ഒരു വ്യക്തി മാത്രം വിചാരിച്ചാൽ ചെയ്യാൻ സാധിക്കണം എന്നില്ല. പക്ഷേ എല്ലാവരുടെയും ഊർജം ഊറ്റിയെടുത്തുകൊണ്ട് തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും നല്ല ഒരു നാളേക്കായി നമുക്ക് കൈകോർത്ത് പ്രവർത്തിക്കാൻ സാധിക്കും എന്നുള്ളതിൽ യാതൊരു സംശയവുമില്ല. അതിന് പരസ്പരം കൈത്താങ്ങായി നിൽക്കുവാനും കവയിത്രി പറയുന്നത് പോലെ ആരുടെ കാലിൽ മുള്ളു തറച്ചാലും അത് ഏൽപ്പിക്കുന്ന നോവ് ഏറ്റുവാങ്ങാനുള്ള ഒരു തുറന്ന മനസ്സ് നമുക്ക് ഓരോരുത്തർക്കും ഉണ്ടാവാനും പരസ്പരം നന്മ നിറഞ്ഞ ചിന്തകളും കൈമാറാം എന്ന് മാത്രം പറഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ട് എൻ്റെ വാക്കുകൾ ഉപസംഹരിക്കുന്നു. നമസ്കാരം.